What's up, everybody? We're back. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox, here with my special guest, Professor Laurel Carroll. Before we move on, just want to give some shout outs. Facebook Live, John Callahan. What's up, Tim? What's happening, Kyle?
The martial arts family's in the house.
Kyle, if you ate all that candy, boy, you're going to do some burpees. Mauricio, what's going on? Craig, what's up? What's up, Rob Merritt? What's up, Mary Condi? How you doing? If you're watching, please share the video on Facebook. So we were talking about jiu-jitsu and the major impact, like it well, particularly it had on me, starting at nearly 40 years old, hearing these messages all my life, whether it was in the restaurant industry, whether it was in the music industry, constantly trying to hone skills and master certain things, and then hitting jiu-jitsu at almost 40 years old, hearing the same messages and finally going, oh, that's what it meant.
Yeah.
And it had a lot to do with the pressure too. The particular amount of pressure that comes with jiu-jitsu, especially. I mean, a lot of martial arts have it, but another great saying, get your pen and paper out again. There will be a quiz at the end, especially if you go to Sun Dojo. Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
Like you said at the beginning, the pressure is real. The resistance is real. Instead of trying to find a shortcut out like, ooh, I'm going to slip this. I'm going to slip this. It's like, no, I'm going to face it. I'm going to figure out a solution because it's coming. It's coming back. Like hunger shows up every day, right?
Yeah.
Tired shows up every day. We make adjustments, but then there's these other things in our lives we may think are superficial or not, but they're coming. They're real, and it affects us.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when I felt that physical pressure.
Like
for me,
literally somebody's mounted you or chest on chest.
Like Tim, who's watching right now, he was a big part of that.
I love Tim.
I love Tim too. Tim's a big guy. I'm a little guy. Tim was always on top of me. And I was like, oh, like this pressure is real. And so you go through that, and then you stand up at the end of class, and there's this message, and you're kind of like gasping for breath. Your mind is scrambling. You're like looking for a solution, and then you hear that message, and you're like, it's just like the spear going through you. Like, that's what it meant all this time, right. You know. And
everybody pops at like a different level. There's levels of popping that happen, and I think every belt really signifies a new level of understanding, like a peeling away. You know, a true martial artist, I believe it's inside already. It's just being revealed. You know?
Absolutely.
So
I totally agree.
As you're shedding those layers and it's becoming closer and closer to who you really are, I think the truisms hit you at different places.
Right. But they've hit me at every level. Like my second class, you know, it was like, what? And so just to give a little brief history on my martial arts and how I ended up here with this shirt on, with that shirt on. Like all kids growing up in the 70s and 80s, I was into karate because the Karate Kid and American Ninja movies and all that great stuff. And when I was about 10, we moved to Norfolk, Virginia, where my mom is from. And Chuck Norris actually had 2 studios there. I've looked them up, and they're the only 2 Chuck Norris.
Really, legitimately his. Yeah,
like
not
it has
franchise.
His name. Yeah, it's like Chuck Norris Karate School or whatever. There was one in Norfolk and one in Virginia Beach. And I kind of dabbled in both of them over a 10-year period, like very inconsistently. But it's funny, like when I started again, I was like, oh, let me see where else he has schools. And like, I couldn't find any. Those are the only 2 that showed up. It was really strange.
I believe he has many.
I'm sure he's associated with like many, but that was the only one I could find that was like the Chuck Norris School. But that was, as you know, that was the era of the day. It was like Chuck Norris, American Ninja, Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio.
Well, I can't tell you how many famous martial artists or extremely successful martial artists have all come back to that point where there's that image of the ideal, the Chuck, like
exactly.
The Bruce Lee tacked to the wall. Billy Blanks told me that specifically. I grew up, and all I did, I found a picture of Bruce Lee. I tagged him up on my wall. Even, you know, how many famous martial artists couldn't go back to some icon from you know, he represents all martial artists for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Of course, he did it he was able to bring it to the stage, and he was able to really showcase martial arts and make it more popular. But he represents the martial arts for eons. Yeah. And how can he do that? So everybody remembers that moment where it's like, oh, I got to do this thing. This is this is something I have to fulfill on.
Well, I didn't for a long time. That was kind of the point. Is like,
But that's part of it,
I
right?
dabbled in it, and then
Yeah.
some Tai Chi, combat-based Tai Chi, and yoga and stuff.
Combat-based Tai Chi.
Yeah,
That's
it was really
interesting.
strange. We were doing
Curious.
staff work. It was all these katas and strikes, but it was Tai Chi.
Right.
It was very slow. You know, it wasn't aggressive at all, but it was definitely.
It's true.
Like,
it is supposed to be sped up and be a kata.
Yeah, it
form
was.
for striking.
It was a type of self-defense, but I was, you know, I didn't do it for more than 3 months consistently, so we never got out of the very basic level, which was quite slow. And then my brother got into Jiu Jitsu in the mid '90s. I was grown at this point. I was already like running restaurants and managing bands. My brother was a little younger. He was a wrestler and got into Jiu Jitsu, you know, in like 95, 96 when the UFC and all that stuff hit. And I remember looking at it and being like, yeah, I want no part of that, especially the way him and his friends presented it to me. I was like, you're all a bunch of knuckleheads.
Right.
And so just abandoned it and just kept like, you know, being athletic and working out and running. But then when you all opened simultaneously, when I was doing all my businesses, it was put in front of me again. And that memory came back. Like, I always wanted to do
I want to be Chuck.
Chuck. Who doesn't want to be Chuck?
Chuck's tough.
I love like the memes and stuff about Chuck Norris right now. They're so
kicks.
serious. Like, well, then there's Chuck Norris, and that's just like completely unattainable. But that was always there. And I remember Professor Carroll saying to me, you should come in and do an intro. You should come in and do an intro. And I'm like, I just opened 4 businesses, and I was like,
that's the person who needs it the most.
Well, I didn't realize that at the time, but I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. But I was kind of attracted to that. And then I remember doing my intro, and I kind of feel like a dick in hindsight, because I was like, I got to leave my phone on. I got to leave my ringer on, because like I got a lot of stuff going on. I just got to be able. And he was just like, yeah, whatever, come in. Like 15 minutes, you know, like I hadn't put that hard drive space aside yet. And loved the intro. It was great. Did my first class, and by the end of my second class, I was like, I'm going to do this. I will rearrange my schedule. I will make this happen. And it was just like an epiphany to me. It was really great. And you know, something was said with a new student the other night. I mentioned it to you, where she said, you know what I love about this is I can't think about anything else. Like, there's somebody in front of me throwing strikes. I can't afford, this was a young person too, it was pretty prolific. I can't afford to let my mind drift right now. I really have to focus.
Well, I think people really like to be in that flow state. It's something we all seek.
Absolutely.
And it's, some people can hit it real quick as soon as they start moving their body, and then they can integrate it has a lot to do with learning whilst moving, right, rather than just simply running. So you're adding in challenges, problems, and creating solutions as you're moving. And then that's when you make yourself, and after that experience, you're able to be really open to hearing, right? Which is what I was getting at when I was saying, after that pressure, like, you just go through all this stuff, and you all have emphasized this so many times, that you learn more in that state. It's been documented that people learn better and retain it. You actually retain it, because you're solving problems. You're not just listening and regurgitating, you're having to problem solve constantly. And it's dynamic problem solving. So it's not just about your body, it's this other person you're working with. It's very indicative of life. Right. And so I feel like when I was in college, that wasn't dynamic problem solving. It wasn't real. It was every season has its pleasures, right? So in college, you're ready for something else. You're ready for another. Although some people are at that level. That's an interesting way of putting that. In college. You haven't said that to me before. Well, that's Jim Rohn. I didn't make that up. So he's a master. We'll talk about him later. Okay. We'll save all that for the last segment. Jim and Tony and Gary, the whole bunch. We'll talk about them all. But I feel like, you know, for me, the college scene was more like this incubator and kind of pampered environment. So I'm hearing these messages, but if the pressure wasn't there, you know, it wasn't the same. Really? You had 4 businesses and a wife and 2 kids. There's no pressure? No, I'm saying when I was in college. Oh, that was college. Before. Yeah, in college. Yeah, when I'm hearing this message from like my drum instructors, which is very physical, and it was all the same. Everything was the same. The details matter. A little finger movement here, it changes everything. You know, if you're having problems executing this, it's because of this small thing. And
all the sayings were the same, and the freedom is in the discipline. I would hear that from these great drum instructors, and I'd be like, what the fuck does that mean? Like,
Right.
I don't, you know.
Well, that's that concept that you always hear from Professor. You have to think about this same problem differently. What does that take? It takes a stretching.
Right.
It takes going into some unknown place that you've never been, you've never seen. You can't, you have to forge it. So that is uncomfortable.
Right.
Because you're like, I always did it this way. I just picked up the leg and threw it over. But hey, it doesn't work with somebody like Tim. It's not going to work.
You still listening, Tim?
Or Mauricio, anybody really who knows anything about jiu-jitsu or just
and that's
strong
the
in general.
resistance, right?
That's there's a whole lot of stuff out there, you know, and you haven't created the pathway yet. So until you actually can go into the forest and figure out, hey, it's dark, kind of sucks. I don't understand it. I have to think. I always did it this way, and I'm getting the same results again and again. And many people can say that you want to change. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be majorly hard.
Right. And it definitely was for me. So coming out of school, it didn't click. And then I go into business for myself, but I was still following the same patterns that I had developed in school.
Well, we create a story that we stick to and we adhere to it vehemently.
And I really feel like I didn't break that until I started training jiu-jitsu. And because
your story doesn't work when you train jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Everything shows up.
Yeah,
everything shows up. You get on the mat.
Wow, I'm so selfish. This sucks.
One of the things that happened earlier, it was an experience with you. We were training and you were like, I need you to relax a little bit. And I was like, I'm relaxed. And you were like, look at your knuckles. And they were like, wait. And it occurred to me at that point, like, I'm just a phony salesman. I'm constantly like pitching my thing. And I was just like, that has to leave. I have to like let that go. It's
the people who often say it the most aren't really, they don't genuinely have it yet.
Right.
But that's okay. That's part of it.
No, it's part of it. But that's when it really clicked. And fortunately for me, I started training when I did, because I can guarantee all of you, I would have burned all of my businesses to the ground.
Oh, I understand.
And hurt people in the process if I hadn't. So for me, I started training. It was like 2 hours a week. Then it was 3 hours a week. Then it was 6 hours a week. Then it was like 15 hours a week. Then it was like 20 hours a week. And it was because the other environments were so chaotic. I had to break away and just only think about one thing, just completely. Like, there's the concept of emptying the cup, which we do every time we come in. We bow, and it's emptying the cup so you can take on more information. I guess I had a big cup and there was constantly stuff coming into it, because I just had to, it was like wiping the hard drive like multiple times a week, because there was just so much going in. And I really feel like if I hadn't have done that, if I hadn't have gone through that, like, I wouldn't have the places that I still have. I wouldn't be sitting in this chair right now with a smile on my face doing this. It just
well, I'm glad to hear that.
Protected me in so many ways and armed me in so many ways. That now I feel like really unstoppable. I mean, I'll try to be a little humble, but I'm like super.
Humility's good.
I feel younger than I did before I started, and
you've really taken on the journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've embraced
it's taken me. It was there, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna ride this bus. I'm gonna like go with it.
But you're steering the bus. You're creating.
I feel like more and more these days.
The changes.
Yeah. Well, I feel like more and more these days, I'm really embracing the concept of not forcing things and responding to pressure, which is a major martial arts
lesson.
Changer.
Yeah.
Yes. Whether, especially if you got a big guy coming at you, you're not going to be able to just move him. So if he's pushing on you hard, there's a point of, there's an opening there somewhere, and you have to take it. So I feel like lately I've really just been riding that. So it feels, and this is like the age-old kind of Zen mentality, do I not doing. So I don't feel like I'm pushing into things so much, like I'm going for this. Things are coming at me, and I'm just kind of like rolling with it. And then it's taking me so many awesome places. It's really
that's great to hear.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, for helping with that. On that note, take some notes. Again, there is a quiz at the end. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with you with more really great information and just awesome vibes and stuff very soon. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web.